Blog Talk Radio.
I saw a cloud today. I watched it change its shape into a dinosaur, a whale, a mermaid, and a plane. The mermaid was pregnant, and then it turned into a Doberman, and the Doberman just turned back into the sky. Then I saw a real plane flying awfully low, man, dropping toxic chemicals all over my town. It says to help us, but they're just trying to hold us down and try and take away our clouds and replace them with their own. Crop dust in downtown, they say it's the ozone, but they don't care about your home. They're just trying out new ways of population control. We're young and we're bold. We can throw away their laws and replace them with our own. And the story will be told about the group of young adults who overthrew the throne, shone a light on just how bright this world could surely shine. Utopia works conceptually, but even in reality, to overthrow the state, we all gotta be in the right state of mind. I saw a bird today, I watched it fly away, and in my heart I knew I had to do the same. The town's really gotten to me, the streets fell rotten to me, and I still can't stand those goddamn fucking planes. But they're only flying now, someday they'll be bombing towns. They already started a secret chemical war. They've taken all we had and still want more. Sky is saturated with rain, I swear I'm not insane. It's going to pour, it's going to pour. So don't you use no phone, because the government can bug anybody's home. So don't walk the streets alone, cause they might steal you in the night without your family being told. But we're young and we're bold, and we can throw away their laws and replace them with our own. And the story will be told about the group of young adults who overthrew the throne, shone a light on just how bright this world could surely shine. Utopia works conceptually, but even in reality, to overthrow the state, we all gotta be in the right state of mind. We all gotta be in the right state of mind. There's no telling just how far we can climb if we're just in the right state of mind.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in once again to Universal Truth Evolution on blogtalkradio.com. I am your host today, Jerry Avalos, bringing you all the news that we tend not to hear on major media for various reasons. Although today our guest is Alfred Weber, who is no rookie in terms of dealing with major media, and including political figures that all of us know somewhat well. Alfred, we're still waiting for Alfred to join us, and as soon as he does, we will jump into all kinds of exopolitical awesomeness. And for those of you who aren't familiar maybe with the term exopolitics, it has to do with how the extraterrestrial situation factors into the daily dealings here on Camp Human, aka Planet Earth. So it's a very, very expansive subject that's really in its infant stage in terms of popular notoriety and really even full academic recognition at this point. As most of us know, most academic institutions don't openly acknowledge the extraterrestrial situation, let alone even things like anti-gravitic propulsion systems, which researchers and our patent offices will agree that we don't necessarily need the ETs to do that. But they all kind of link hand in hand, and that's really why the subject of exopolitics really needs to be brought up more in general terms and more common, just like any kind of political discussion. And I know a lot of us tend to, groan, oh my God, politics, right? Well, I totally understand that because most of politics is a bunch of bullshit, which is, how it goes. But a lot of it really is because of our own indifference and just allowing it to go on, allowing ourselves to think that all politicians are liars, and ergo we elect liars. So good job to us, right? We did a great job electing the best liars. So we do know that we can accomplish what we want when we put our minds to it. So we should focus our minds on maybe getting people in office like Alfred here, who's done some really awesome things. And while we're waiting for him to call in, I'll actually read a little bit about his bio because honestly I could talk about exopolitics for hours myself. So either way, Alfred's an awesome figure. He's actually one of the pioneers, along with Michael Salla, of that term exopolitics, and actually it's really an area of study or science, one can say, is what they're really trying to establish it as. So, with Alfred Weber, I'll just read his bio here that you can catch on Wikipedia too. But Alfred Weber, JD, MED, is an author, lawyer, member of the District of Columbia Bar, futurist, peace activist, environmental activist, a space activist who promotes the ban of space weapons. He was a co-architect of the Space Preservation Treaty and the Space Preservation Act that was introduced to the U.S. Congress by Congressman Dennis Kucinich and is endorsed by more than 270 NGOs worldwide. He helped draft the citizen hearing in 2000 with Stephen Bassett and serves as a member of Board of Advisors. Weber is also on the Board of Advisors at the Exopolitics Institute, is the congressional coordinator for the Disclosure Project, is a judge on the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal, and is the international director of the Institute of Cooperation in Space. So that's a little bit about the man Alfred Weber, and even if for whatever reason we don't catch our dear buddy Alfred today, I highly, highly, highly recommend checking out his videos on YouTube, and there's plenty now of him talking about different subjects, and including some older interviews with everyone at the Universal Truth Evolution's friend Aaron McCollum, discussing exopolitics, and as well as just because Alfred is a very aware man, so he does talk a lot about the shifting consciousness. So he does speak on that as well. So I highly recommend checking out his different videos. And actually, he has a great segment actually that was recorded from the Project Camelot Awaken Aware conference as well, or was it Exopolitics conference? Either way, I'm sorry. It was with Project Camelot, and so. He has a great presentation there, and then also there's a link I can share too in the chat room right now, since we're just waiting here anyways, of Alfred speaking at the UFO Disclosure Press Conference in 2009. I think a lot of people here especially are familiar with the National Press Club meeting from 2003, or is it 2001. Where a lot of that's right, so it was before 9/11, and where Sergeant Clifford Stone talked about the 57 different documented species that he was aware of at the time while he was in the military, serving as a sort of for lack of a better purposes or better terms, an ET/EMT and translator. Apparently he approached a lot of the fallen craft during some of the crash or shoot down incidents, shall we say, and so all of us are familiar with that one. But there's also been more press conferences along these lines, and then this one where Alfred was just recently speaking at was an excellent time, I guess you can say, in a sense, because we had new accounts from new military personnel who talked about yet again another nuclear incident where extraterrestrials shut down the nuclear facilities and coordinated, and this was in the early 2000s. So this was actually well after the 2001 press conference where they talked about that as well in the 80s. So it's really it's interesting to note this because of when we take into consideration a lot of the different theories that have been posed, or even actually we'll even take our last guest co-author of some of the things I just got done saying, Stephen Bassett, when he's talking about he doesn't agree that the extraterrestrials would stop a nuclear attack. Well, and I presented him with a alternative view of that, saying, well, it's kind of in their interest considering all the different research that might be going on, purely scientific, and the resources in terms of where if the bomb were to go off in a particular reason, now all of those resources are now polluted, and so then they'd have to either just work through it or present themselves and clean it up. So there's a lot of reasons why an extraterrestrial race wouldn't allow a nuclear exchange. Not to mention that there could very well be some kind of bases or something this might impact as well, because I think a lot of us just assume we're the only ones inhabiting this planet right now, where I don't even think that's safe to assume that. I can't say I know that for sure, but I'm just saying it's not really safe to assume that, considering all that we're learning about not only inner Earth in a sense, or what the possibilities of inner Earth are, but then also the parallel dimensions that could be impacted by these sort of blasts. And even Einstein talked about that, as well as the implications of a nuclear blast in piercing that fabric of reality and having more implications than we even realize. So I really am kind of not even so much as like, oh, the ETs are here to save us, they're all love and light. No, I'm not like a delusional Greer fan here or something. But what I'm saying is just logistically, if you break it down, it just doesn't make sense. So so you have to look at it that way too. And so that press conference that I did post in the chat room, it's longer, so when you get a chance to look at that, go for it. Those in the archives, we're actually working on getting these links a little bit easier accessible to everyone, and with the help actually of our now active domain and blog, where we'll be making blog posts with all the links that we talk about on the show for the archives. So if you guys want to check it out later, and we don't have, obviously, if I'm posting a link in the chat room, you guys ain't seeing it, right? So we definitely want people to follow this line that we're leaving, as well as kind of have an information trail to share with others, because that's what really this is about. Because as we all get aware, it's great when we sort of resonate that awareness, and it does make a difference on our surroundings, whether we realize it or not. Just holding the space of awareness, not even talking to anyone, it actually does help. But when we have a chance to really effectively communicate, and it's not about changing minds, it's not about necessarily doing any of that, because someone's going to change their mind on their own. So you really just have to communicate properly. What's your point? So on the point of extraterrestrials, you have to back it up, or you're going to get some severe resistance, especially if it comes up in company who might be very fearful of the subject, or is very, very brainwashed by the dogmas, calling it the devil, just like everything else, right? So we have to have these different links and these documents really that prove this. And so this conference where these men came out and talked about this other incident, different places, all different bases around the country here in the United States, and once again verifying that the ETs just do not like the fact that we are standing poised with the nuclear weapons. So at least some of them, I'm pretty sure all of them, some of them don't give a flying piece of shit, but I'm sure some of them do. So and so that's the point, though, and so it's there, it's a factor, that's part of this factor that's coming in. And so with people like Alfred, you're really is really trying to set the tone of our intention in space, And if we pay attention to this, it's going to be more effective for the reality that all of us here, especially in the chat room right now and archives, really want, which is really peaceful exploration and expansion. There's going to be plenty of things to shoot at. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to want to kill us anyways. So it's like, you don't have to make any new enemies when there isn't any. It's a wacky, wacky universe out there, as I'm sure many people will tell you. So there's plenty of danger to be had. No need to make unnecessary ones. So this, like for instance, this whole space preservation treaty that Alfred helped pen has a lot to do with banning space-based weapons. Just because that is the next, that obviously that is militarily would be sort of the next step in a lot of ways. The satellite coverage that we already have right now is the first step of this. I mean, that really is militarizing space in a lot of ways by using global positioning satellites to guide, missiles to their target. I would say that's space-based weaponry. At least or application of this and that technology. So it's important that the more people realize that we are already in space one way, and so it's not that far off. It's really not that removed of a concept. So that's one way we can ground people in a sense, even though we're talking about space, right? Kind of ironic. To the subject of our participation in space and where that factors in with the extraterrestrials, and then there is evidence out there that you can say it's a factor. I mean, that the tether incident from the space shuttle is a great video to point out for that. And no matter you hear all the naysaying on that one, but really honestly, you don't have to be an expert. You just have to understand that you can't walk through objects very easily in this dimension, and you'll see in this video that things are passing in front and behind and all this other stuff, and so there absolutely is something else flying out there. So, looking in on that, if we have a bunch of weapons, and it's kind of funny because I'm sure some of these extraterrestrials are laughing their asses off at us because it's like there's probably I'm sure there's a lot of gnarly things up there that don't really care about things, just like there are here. But I think they probably find it so funny that we have all of our weapons and everything aimed at ourselves on our own, on our own planet. And look at these goofy little monkey-like creatures aiming their guns at each other. So, not knowing that the bigger issue might even be out, somewhere else. But because that's one thing we all have to take into consideration too. Because I'm not claiming that I know that all is love and light out in the universe. It's like, no, I can't say that. Sorry. So you have to assume that there's a threat too, and so that's one thing that everyone has to keep in mind in terms of the powers that be. A lot of these people just are doing what they feel is right, and especially if they're working under the old dogmas or even some of the half-truths that they've even understood, even in their own deep, dark, black ops research, because they don't know all the answers. So there's stuff that they don't know too. So then it comes back down to being human. So then if someone's human, they're going to have all the same needs, wants, and fears as pretty much everyone else, just in a different shade, different context, color, whatever you want to call it. And so they just think they're doing what's right. Now, sure, some of them I'm sure are just greedy dicks who just want everything for themselves. But something tells me a lot of people at the very top ain't even necessarily like that. So, they might be seeing stuff, that really legitimately is a threat. And they're saying, we have to not tell people because they'll freak the fuck out. And then we have to explain a whole bunch of shit, and then it just gets in a bunch of snafu of, meanwhile, there's something really ominous or something important that we have to pay attention on. So we don't know. That could be part of what's going on, too. We don't know. So it's not good to assume one way or another, honestly, about this embargo. Yes, it needs to end. The truth embargo absolutely, positively needs to fucking end. Okay? It needs to come out, because obviously there's enough people listening now and who have been checking online that just needs to happen. So because we all know, we do know, and so there's nothing you can do to hide it. So it's already out, and slowly but surely it's coming out. So the sooner we're able to, deal with this, the better. So, and because that way, actually, if we think about it, that also puts more minds, applies more minds to these solutions. So, because that's obviously what we need in this right now. There's so much stuff that is going on in this world here, let alone in outer space, that this needs to come out, especially how Stephen Bassett was making the point last time concerning stuff like free energy. So if free-ish energy, shall I say? Because he's right. There's no such thing as like free energy. There's some effort and resources that have to be applied. So it's not necessarily free, but it's cheaper, very cheap. So stuff like that makes it possible, as you said, to create more desalination plants, to even create more growing facilities for vegetables, indoor vegetables growing, and a lot of other things. So that all works in to some of the things that we've learned from these different extraterrestrial species, and as well as just our own research that now is also being, has that embargo on it as well. For those who aren't familiar with a researcher named Stan Deyo, he is someone I also highly, highly recommend, because as Stan Deyo will talk about, is that he has extensive knowledge and research into anti-gravitic propulsion and a lot of other things like that. So, and he talks about achieving this without extraterrestrial assistance. So even just beyond that, there's an embargo even just on that end. We do have a caller here. I want to see if this is Alfred, so I'm going to see who this is. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Universal Truth Evolution.
Yeah, I'm Alfred, and I'm really sorry. I didn't realize sometimes shows call me, and then other times I'm supposed to call shows, and I didn't know that I was supposed to call into this show. So I'm late, but I'm here, and I want to thank Tamara for sending me the email.
Yeah, well, thank you for showing up, and we're sorry for the communication breakdown there. Tamara and I were just saying we need to iron out this process for everyone here. So thank you. And
yeah, sure.
But yeah, I kind of gave everyone a pretty good intro about you and what you do.
Oh, good.
And so I think, and something tells me most of our audience here is probably pretty familiar with your work. And then we actually just had Stephen on last Thursday too. So this is an opportune time here. Yeah.
This is Stephen who?
Stephen Bassett. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there are a number of Stephens in the exopolitics field.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a big joke about it, so I wanted to check.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I've lost Steves in my personal realm, so that's kind of a slip on my hand too. So. But yeah, it's great to have you on. So I guess we could just start with: is there anything you want to talk about, or is there anything hot in your realms that you may want to share with our audience right now?
Gee, well, I mean, there's a huge amount of stuff going on,
mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to see. I had sort of shifted my mind out of the. I said, oh, well, the radio program forgot about me, and I'm going to get back into my little world and work.
Yeah.
And so, do you want to ask me questions?
Oh, sure.
And kind of draw me out, and then my mind and my brain will engage, and then we can get started here.
Okay, great. I actually did have a question, just concerning, because I see how you're very, very active in the political sphere, and yeah. I'm just kind of wondering how is the attitude behind the scenes as opposed to in front of the cameras, or because usually when citizens tend to go and ask about questions like exopolitics, you just kind of get laughed at or the cold shoulder. But obviously you're getting some stuff done in space. So I'm just wondering, what is the real climate, behind the scenes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that reality is, by the way, is Tamara on the air?
No, she's not there, but she's online here chatting, so she's definitely accessible.
Oh, good. I just wanted to get the layout of things. My read of the state of reality on this planet is that it's extremely in flux. And there is very little. There's a breakdown in what we call consensual reality.
Mm-hmm.
And hello?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so that realities are really fragmented because there's been an artificial reality for the last, multiple hundreds of years, but since at least the last 60 years, there's been a very defined false matrix reality around the extraterrestrial issue and around our whole, people working in the false matrix of the permanent war economy. Mm-hmm. And that false matrix is now starting to shatter. What happened in 1953 after an overflight of hyperdimensional extraterrestrial craft behind the U.S. Capitol was that, which occurred in July of 1952 and was on the front pages of all world newspapers, was that the CIA held a panel, the Robertson panel, and in effect put a false matrix in place, and that is that any mention of UFOs or extraterrestrials in either education, government, science, media has to be accompanied by ridicule. So suddenly we're not in a planet that's in a galaxy and universe, a solar system galaxy and universe that is highly populated and highly organized, but we're, back in the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, and that is that all organized higher intelligence ends the geostationary orbit of Earth. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a matrix that the Illuminati, which we can call, is another word for bloodlines going to the British monarchy, going to certain noble bloodlines around the British monarchy, maybe the Dutch monarchy, the black nobility of Europe, and bloodlines around the city of London and financial institutions have and continue to try and manipulate on us by using advanced weaponry, by using the monetary system. They worship God, gold, oil, and drugs. And that's how they control the planet. And so, for example, the January 2010 earthquake in Haiti was done via HAARP for the gold and the petroleum underneath the island of Hispaniola. And if people want more verification, they can go to peaceinspace.org and listen to a whole series of articles and radio programs that we have there with an independent scientist verifying that. Now, that false matrix is starting to break down because of the action of the universe. Our universe, which is one of an unknown number of universes and dimensions in the multiverse, its singularity, in other words, the core at its core has a singularity or an interdimensional portal in the same way that our galaxy has a singularity or an interdimensional portal that we view as a galactic black hole. Well, our universe also has an interdimensional portal. And through there, that portal is now emanating and has started since last summer, emanating waves of enlightened unity consciousness. And such that it's very difficult for duality to survive that in sort of the field, the morphogenic field of enlightened unity consciousness, which is now surrounding us. Our minds are like individual radio transceivers that can pick up this enlightened unity consciousness and we can entrain ourselves to those waves. Some people call that God, tuning into God. Other people call it tuning into Source. Other people call it tuning into the waves of enlightened unity consciousness that are emanating from the interdimensional portal at the core of our galaxy, of our universe, rather. In other words, there's a scientific explanation for everything, even for God. So, with that action happening, what it means is that the matrix, the artificial matrix that has been placed on us at a variety of levels, is now starting to disintegrate and deconstruct, and people are starting to pop up and wake up and, not follow its entrainment, but rather follow the entrainment of Source. And so it means that reality, because reality is what people on this planet perceive it to be, is in a great state of flux. And so on any given day, you'll get a whole wide variety of versions of what reality is being said and permitted to be said on any individual microphone or camera in any place around the world. When I'm in Canada, and when I go to, here in North America, is probably the most censored place on the face of the planet around the multidimensional reality that we live in and things dealing with extraterrestrials. And the basic reason for that is that the U.S. government is the general contractor for the abduction program of the U.T.E gray extraterrestrials that has been ongoing on the planet for about 200 or 300 years. And that, under that program, the U.T.E grays have determined that they're from the constellation U.T.Es, where, and they have determined that their race is dying because they went to cloning and were cloning from duplicates rather than originals. And so their race has been degenerating. And about 300 years ago, our time, they started to abduct humans from this planet for genetic experiments and to create a new species of hybrid human greys, and which they've been ongoing and in an ongoing program. And our best information is that they abduct about 30,000 people a year. About 1 to 3% of these die during that. And they consider it vital to their survival. The United States acts as sort of the intermediary on the planet for this, in return for which the U.S. government, the kind of the black ops black budget, gets advanced military technology. For example, whenever there's a downed extraterrestrial craft and there are live gray extraterrestrials, the U.S. government sees to it that those live extraterrestrial astronauts are returned to U.T.Es, to the Greys. And that occurred where there was a downed craft in Varginha, Brazil. There were 6 live extraterrestrials. The Brazilian Air Force returned them to the U.S. Air Force. The U.S. Air Force returned them to the U.T.Es Greys. In return, the U.S. Air Force got advanced extraterrestrial technology, which was useful in military applications, which is how the U.S. maintains its military hegemony on the planet. And the U.S. government then paid off the Brazilian Air Force in terrestrial technology. So that's kind of what the exopolitics of that situation is. Now, that's probably why disclosure is not occurring. That's the single most reason why disclosure is not occurring, because the U.T.Es Greys do not want their abduction program made public, because they're fearful of a huge backlash by the world public, and they're fearful that would endanger their abduction program and endanger their survival. Now, how do we know all this? We know all this through the efforts of a now deceased former NORAD officer, lifelong NORAD officer, named Stanley A. Fulham, who died on December 19th, 2010, after his pancreatic cancer was accelerated by frequency weapons to silence him. I interviewed him at the end of October of 2010, and he was, robust enough to carry out a 90-minute rigorous interview. And he spent 10 years working with an interdimensional source and wrote a lengthy book, which is available, which describes the workings of Regional Galactic Governance Council. And which is composed of 8 or so of the intelligent civilizations that council sort of oversees the affairs of life-bearing planets in our region of the galaxy, and includes the Alpha Centaurians, the Sirians, the Pleiadians, but also the U.T.Es Greys. So the other members of that council are working with the U.T.Es Greys and trying to negotiate with them to put some limits on their abduction programs. And that's, so this is a naughty exopolitical program or project or issue that bears on why we don't get extraterrestrial disclosure in North America. When I went down to Mexico, to Colima, in mid-November of 2010, to spend a week there in Exopolitics, at the opening dinner, I was seated, and there were about maybe 35 people around this table, very welcoming. I was going to talk at the university down there, and was on national television. I was on like the Today Show of Mexico and all of that. And to my left at the dinner was the governor of the state, and to my right was the head of the scientific advisory committee of the state of Colima. And you don't get that in the States because of the 1953 CIA panel. You have absolutely censorship here. You have a total total state terror and state censorship around the issue of extraterrestrials. Mm-hmm. And you go down, everybody has the view, oh, Mexico, it's wild, it's a drug culture, it's a savage country. And the reality is that they're 20 billion times more civilized than the United States in terms of being in touch with dimensional society. And from what I discovered down there, and then I wrote an article after the Arizona shootings, which are obviously MK Ultra mind control. Mm-hmm. The so-called drug violence in Mexico, and you talk to the people down there, they say, yeah, that's it. That is not indigenous to Mexico. That's the international drug cartels of Dope Incorporated, mm-hmm. which is the British throne, the nobles, and the nobility, and the City of London that have controlled drugs internationally since the time of George III, when they initiated the opium wars against China, that are doing that as part of the destabilization and impoverishment of North America ever since they threw Mexico, the U.S., and Canada into utter chaos with the implementation of NAFTA through Bill Clinton, one of their servants. So, it just the Matrix version of reality is like totally opposite to what the real version of reality is. So it's like I would say that what I've just given is more of a true version than, will Obama disclose or not? I mean, Obama personally, I don't know whether he knows about the deals with the Greys or the background on the abduction programs. I have no idea what his personal state of consciousness is. However, I know that Steve Bassett fought really hard during the transition and got the extraterrestrial issue pretty high on the transition, the Obama transition from November to January '09, mm-hmm. And got that very high on the transition website as an item to be dealt with, E.T. disclosure. And after the inauguration, all that was taken down. There wasn't a mention of extraterrestrials on the White House website. And I've written articles that have exposed how the White House press secretary and press corps, there's a prohibition on reporters asking any questions about extraterrestrials. And I've personally been in Washington and have spoken to the White House press corps, and they don't, you ask them a question, and they don't even return your phone calls if it's about extraterrestrials. They're under and I have a person who I have a one of the persons who I've interviewed a whole number of times, who worked in 3 White Houses. He was an officer on Air Force One, and he's an extraterrestrial contactee, and he now photographs the interdimensional ships as they land on the Capitol and they overfly the Obama White House. And what they do is he has an implant, and they signal him through the implant. And he goes out and takes the photographs at night because they come in through interdimensional portals that they self-generate, these ships, and they do it very quickly so as not to create a dogfight with the F-16s that, are on alert. And they land on the Capitol, and they overfly the White House, and they land on U.S. Senate office buildings, and we know that because we published the photographs of them. And he has the guy who oversaw the Obama transition, was chief coordinator of the Obama transition, told him that he should stop doing this work because, quote, it would destabilize society. So these people are talking out of both sides of their mouth. They're just servants of the Illuminati and of the false matrix. And that's what the situation is. And so we're in a transitional period. I just published an article yesterday, interview with Laura Magdalene Eisenhower, the great-granddaughter of President Dwight D. Eisenhower, on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of Dwight Eisenhower's farewell speech, in which he warned against the military-industrial complex. And she said that it's unity consciousness that will collapse the military-industrial complex, and that's entirely true. So as more and more people begin to break away from their self-imposed hypnosis, they're in kind of a consensual trance under the false matrix, and begin to tune into the waves of enlightened unity consciousness, that's when this entire thing is going to collapse. Now, some of the later information that we had, and this was from a former NATO Spanish intelligence agent, and this conforms with a lot of the researchers of HAARP and chemtrails as well. And the information that he received, in which he independently confirmed the existence of the Extraterrestrial Council, is that the function of chemtrails and of HAARP, the intentional function of them, is to block the access of there's a thread that goes up from people's crown chakras, and that's what you would receive. That's how you receive the waves of unity consciousness coming from the universal core and from the galactic core. And the function of HAARP and of the chemtrails is to block these. That's how diabolical the Illuminati forces are. So now, supposedly, the Galactic Council has said that they've started to intervene to counteract some of these effects. But people should know that chemtrails and HAARP are all about blocking their access to source. So people should really try and become awake, really make the effort, and try to tune in to not only the galactic black hole, but to the universal portal.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that is kind of what I think is a bird's eye view of the underlying dynamics that are going on. And I found it that you can't make, like broad generalizations. Like you can go into, like if you cross a border, like each individual custom agent is a different person because that person, some of them are tuned in and some of them are checked out.
That's great put it.
Yeah, and that's basically what's happening on the planet now.
Yeah, absolutely. I was wondering what your thoughts would be on because the treaty that you talked about with the one particular race of Greys, Dan Burrish talked about that a similar treaty. Are you guys talking about the same thing? Because he also talked about like having that renegotiating at one point too with those abductions. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, or if you are, what's your take on that?
Well, yeah, what I've said is that we should have a truth amnesty process, and this is what even the Greys have recommended through some of their contactees, like Jim Sparks. Because what they say is there's been a tremendous amount of unconstitutionality and illegality that has taken place over the last 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these different versions of what happened and what acts took place, what acts didn't take place, and there's a huge amount of people that could be prosecuted for crimes. So also there's a lot of technologies that are now sequestered in individual projects in the national security state. And, you know, even if people wanted to get them out, they couldn't do it without being prosecuted for violating security oaths or other statutes. So what we need is a huge truth amnesty process, both as to these kind of dark years where the government was essentially taken over and made the tool of a program. According to the others in the Galactic Council, it's not that the Booties Greys are evil. It's that they don't have feelings. They're different. And they are looking at the abduction programs as necessary for their survival.
Mm-hmm.
And they look at humans as very, very primitive animals, kind of the way we look at cattle. And our notions of karmic justice, you know, like, this is against my rights, you know,
mm-hmm.
are based on emotions. And they don't have emotions. They just have pure reason. You know, they have made the equation that their entire species is going to disappear and that they're only taking 30,000 people a year. Only 1 to 2% of them die, and the rest are returned. And all that they're doing is taking some genes to create a new species of gray human hybrids, and that's going to allow them to continue. Now, there are about 30,000 humans, according to one report in 2003, that are interned on camps in Booties. Mainly they're women who serve as wombs for the gray, for the new species. But apparently they're well, and these children are their children, you know. So it's a complex exopolitical situation.
Yes.
But what makes it worse is secrecy,
mm-hmm.
and then identification with the oppressor, and then you know where you've had Illuminati factions, you know, with the assassination of Kennedy, then come in and try to impose the 300 or 400 or however many year Illuminati plan to take over the world, which they're now trying to do. That is just absurd. And you know, like at the university I went to, Yale, Skull and Bones, the secret society there, their secret name, their cover story is that they were founded in 1832 as the second chapter, as a chapter of the Brotherhood of Death in Germany. That's their cover story. But the real story is that they were founded in 1776 as a second chapter of the Illuminati. And the Illuminati, if you go back to 1775, were founded in order to implement a world takeover and the establishment of a survival base on Mars in order to survive a world catastrophe, for an elite genome to survive a world catastrophe that would occur either in 2012 or 2024-42. So, you have all these kind of occult things that have been driving, these elite secret societies for 300 or 400 years, all based on bloodlines, and it's all a bunch of baloney.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Go ahead, I'm sorry?
In the end, it's all a bunch of baloney because it's all based on dualistic thinking, and enlightened unity consciousness is just making a joke of it. So here we come down to the end of history, and the monarchies may control 99% of the wealth. I mean, there's a book that just came out. Queen Elizabeth is the largest landowner on the planet. Okay, well, your Illuminati plan won. Now what? And big deal. Yeah. And so all of that, we're in a transition where that matrix is deconstructing, and we're in a transition where hopefully within 100 years we'll be in a new world, and people will wake up that they don't need to give all their wealth away to mommy and daddy, who are black magicians anyway, and who don't give a rat's about them, and whose greatest wish is to stunt their spiritual growth and enslave them. And that's the masonry that the monarchies have used for centuries to keep themselves in power. And people just haven't wanted to catch on to it because they've used the Roman Catholic Church and other religions who stay in power by propagating false scientific information about how the afterlife functions. Now, that's the other story. What I'm doing right now is I have to deliver a manuscript to my publisher by February 20th. I'm at work on my next book, which is called Dimensions. It's my first book in 10 years after Exopolitics. It's called Dimensions, the dimensional ecology of the multiverse. And it's sort of the marriage of exopolitics and the afterlife. And it shows that it's all one big dimensional ecology. And, we go and we spend the interlife as souls, and then we become all sorts of different extraterrestrials in all sorts of different worlds and dimensions, and it's a big play. And so the organized religions like the monarchies, I mean, basically the Roman Catholic Church just morphed from being the Roman Emperor, and basically we've had the Roman Emperor for the last 2,000 years playing a fairy tale on the human race of what the afterlife is like. It's just totally scientific nonsense. And by manipulating people's fear, that's how they stayed in power, this narrow elite. So all of that is now becoming transparent in a way that the people are ready to hear it. I mean, anybody, worth his or her salt would know this at any given time over the centuries, but you could not communicate it to the mass because they were too far enslaved inside the dream. So, but now with enlightened unity consciousness, well, hopefully more and more people will just pop out and say, my God, we've got a serial child molester as a pope, I mean, it's just,
no kidding.
How much more do you want, And there's a tribunal starting in September of 2011 in London, International Tribunal. The defendants are the Pope and the Queen of England, and some of the evidence, for example, the Queen of England is the head of state of Canada, and the Queen and her consort, Prince Philip, came here, and this is all through witnesses, in the fall of 1964 to British Columbia, to Kamloops, which is a little bit north of Vancouver here. They went to an Aboriginal residential school. They picked out 10 young Aboriginal, children. You would call them Native American children. and they said, oh, they're going to go for a picnic. Well, they took those 10 children and went down to the river, and the children were never seen again alive in their lives.
Yeah.
Now, whether they were ritually sacrificed or what, we don't know. But that's, and they're head of state and the monarchies, and they're surrounded by Masonic guards. I mean, all the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, which is like the FBI. These are all Illuminati, Masonic, diabolical forces. The sole purpose of the FBI is to carry out things like the Arizona shootings, to really implement the MK Ultra programs and the HARP programs and the COINTELPRO programs. That's what they exist for. They have no other function. So, and I guess most people know that. So we're just in this transitional period, which my guess is that by 2020 or so, things will have cleared up pretty much.
I can agree with that, just because you do see everything really building up right now, and which actually gets into a good point that you brought up earlier about an amnesty idea. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, that's something that I really thought about, and I actually Steve Bassett was very active a few years ago and set up a number of press conferences at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., and I got up and proposed a Truth Amnesty project at the National Press Club. That was the same year that I got, right before I got to that, I spoke in New York. I went from New York down to Washington, and in New York I spoke at the New York 9/11 conference, which was held at the same place that Abraham Lincoln spoke in New York. And, that entire building was surrounded by emergency vehicles with things like microwave generators in them. They were, ELFing everybody in the audience. It was like very hard to keep your attention going. So by the time I got down to the press conference, the Washington Post was there, and the Washington Post reporter that they sent down was a guy who went to Yale and was a Skull and Bones member. So he was Skull and Bones, Washington Post, probably CIA, and his job was just to totally destroy anything that was said at that press conference, which he did. And so then I'm a journalist too, so I did a counterattack on them. And because of my address at the 9/11 conference, and at that conference then I was targeted by the National Standard, the Weekly Standard, that is kind of the all the neocon, that's like the neocons, So there's this whole machine there, which if you go in if you go in and expose certain levels of the matrix, well, they send out their tanks, like this, like the Weekly Standard, and this guy. This guy is usually reports on national politics and on U.S. presidential candidates. I guess I bring the tools. I've been in what I call public interest counterintelligence since the early 1970s, and I helped Representative Henry B. Gonzalez get the House Select Committee on Assassination started in 1975, where we investigated the assassination of John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X, and got that started in the House of Representatives. And so, I've experienced that whole generation of war, and thank God that we've gotten to this stage where that entire meme of the permanent war economy is starting to deconstruct, and in our lifetimes may be just some figment of the past.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. That's one thing that I keep voicing on the show here. It's obviously that a lot of the attitude towards the war right now, it's just a hard sell. People ain't buying, and we're all looking for something different. And that's why, like I was saying before you got on the show, is how it's important to bridge what's going on, pan-dimensionally, in space, with what's going on here, because it all factors in, one way or another.
Right.
So, I mean, what's one of the ways you would say that this embargo is really manifesting itself in everyone's day-to-day life?
Well, I mean, let me count the ways. I mean, people are living on a planet that is on the verge of ecological collapse. What the Extraterrestrial Council told Stanley A. Fulham, if this is correct or not, was that they had met in Earth time in January of 2010, and that the Earth's ecology, they had decided that the Earth's ecology was going to collapse, and that it was beyond, the tipping point had been reached to where it was beyond the power of human science and human technology to correct it. And they decided to set aside the law of non-intervention, which is a rare decision, and to intervene and to begin to clean the Earth's environment starting around 2015. And they would like to appear at the UN General Assembly in 2014 and make a world speech through the Pleiadians, who look more like us. And that the period between now and 2014 would be a period of great world change, with Earth changes and all kinds of stuff, and a collapse of the financial system, and so that condition, the fact that we've reached a condition where our environment has collapsed, is a direct result of the truth embargo of extraterrestrials, because the positive extraterrestrials had already approached world leaders back in the 1950s and said, look, if you just stop all your nuclear weapons, we'll give you all the technology to make this a paradise on Earth. And we would not have had the intervening troubles and all of the environmental deterioration that we've had in the last half 50 years of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century, where we really have had a collapse of the environment, both in terms of CO2, in terms of the depleted uranium, in terms of toxicity. It's just all of the invasions of the biosphere are horrific.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a report that came out in November of 2010 that the U.S. military are the world's largest polluters, and that's true.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that at all.
So it's directly tied to the extraterrestrial embargo. It's just like we're living in a wasteland where the planet has been despoiled to the point where we've reached a tipping point, and the species is going to go extinct, and the planet is the ecology is going to collapse. And that's what an atmospheric scientist who is on the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change at the UN told me 5 years ago. And he's the head of atmospheric sciences at a major university in New Zealand. He says, we've already reached a tipping point, and humanity is going to be extinct, barring an outside intervention. And by outside intervention, it means 250 to 300 Pleiadian ships with advanced technology cleaning the atmosphere and reviving the ecology of the planet.
Yeah, interesting.
It's that serious, and the Illuminati know it, and the dark forces know it, and they're carrying out a scorched earth policy, which is nobody's going to have it. If we can't have it, nobody's going to have it, and very few people are willing to listen to this message. It's like nobody's willing to listen to this message. Even with the BP oil spill, where we showed, I went on with Governor Jesse Ventura, and I showed that the BP oil spill was caused by, gold, oil, and drugs. The Illuminati-controlled oil companies, connected to the Bush gang and, Halliburton and everything. It was part of the Katrina false flag and part of the British flown occupation. You even had the black magic masonry during Katrina of Prince Charles in a Scottish kilt and his new lady standing on the levees there being photographed overlooking that area because that was a British strike on America. It's all, it's this strange sort of war that's going on, and so you have the Illuminati taking down the environment of the area of the world in plain sight. With Obama's energy czar, BP paid him, gave him a $500 million grant while he was at the University of California before he was energy secretary. Then he brought on a BP scientist to be his deputy at the energy thing. So BP was running the energy policy of the Obama administration. And that's why BP and the Coast Guard collaborated in killing the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, and I know that
they've killed the loop current, the North Atlantic loop current now. So that's why we're going into a mini ice age. This is a deliberate ecocide, a deliberate assassination of the planet in plain sight. Okay? And you don't see people marching. You don't see anything. BP bought off all the environmental groups. They're all like, Friends of the Earth, Sierra Club, they've all gotten huge BP grants. They're all silent.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who is part of the matrix, forget it. That's why one has to be just totally attuned to a source and to break away from the matrix, and that's how the deconstruction happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unity consciousness collapses the military-industrial complex, but it's going to take a tremendous amount of light consciousness and people's discipline to just do that, and to stay out of fear.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you had informed us that you're a little shorter on time today, so just let me know whenever you have to go. I'm sorry.
Are we on the air or?
Yeah, we're on there. Yeah, so.
Okay.
But I was just informed.
Well, look,
I know you're only going to.
It's just about 2:00, so I've actually been on the air for 1 hour, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, look, I'm sorry. It's that the communication breakdown occurred today. I think that we've had an excellent in-depth exploration and an examination of what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to ask, my book, Dimensions, is going to be out later in the spring of this year.
Awesome.
And I would like to ask if, once it's out and published, I can send you a review copy, and we could do a show and talk
absolutely.
about it. Oh, great.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, like I was saying before you got here, I've been a fan of your work for a while now, and so
thanks.
Been loving this. I always try to catch the videos that come out on YouTube because we need more rational minds really bringing this subject to the forefront and informing people like we did today. So
yeah, great. Well, look, I have really appreciated and the kind of open platform and the space that you provide and you allow for us to come here and to speak our minds, because that's really important, and I really appreciate that. And I also appreciate being able to come back later once our new book is out there, and kind of this is like the next step after Exopolitics, and I think it's a step that's going to take us for the next 10 years. Yeah,
definitely. I'm looking forward to that for sure. And just once again, I'd like to apologize for the U.T.E team here and myself tomorrow.
I didn't know whether I was going to be called by Skype or phone, or I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, we're gonna get that cleared up for our guests too, and for save everyone headaches, just makes it easier. So thanks.
Right.
So thank you once again though, for sure. And I can't wait to have this conversation.
And I will email Tamara once my book's out.
Okay.
I will email her, and then I can send you a copy.
Great.
And good enough.
Yeah, definitely, and thank you for your input on the show. It's creating an open platform is really what I like to do for all of our guests, just because it's like I think especially in this realm we spend so much time justifying or backing up what we got that it's not necessary in certain crowds, because most of us here will go do our own research anyways, and likewise. Yeah. If we followed you, we kind of know where your research is coming from, and we definitely appreciate anything new or any input or helping to pull things together a little bit more.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay then. Okay, good. So, good enough.
Yeah. Well, all right, Alfred. So I know you're a very, very busy man.
Great. And yeah. So I want to thank you deeply for having me as a guest, and I look forward to my next appearance on your program.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure all of us are looking forward to it just as much. So thank you once again.
Certainly. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. And that was Alfred Weber, everyone. It was great to have him on for the hour we had here. And there's quite a lot of information there, and there's a lot of different leads to review on in the archives. There's always new information coming out in ufology, exopolitics, and I know I'm really interested to see about his this next book, because it gets into what all of us are really here for, because after all the crap is over with, all the truth is uncovered, we have to figure out who and what we want to be in this new world that we're trying to create. And so the more you work towards that right now, the better. And that includes even survival stuff, and like having food, learning how to survive anywhere, or just make your own food, make your own tools, make your own stuff like that, because we shouldn't have to rely on anyone for these things anyways. And that really is how we're going to create economy anyways, because really the economy isn't paper. It's not gold. It's not silver. It's actually the people trading and bartering and providing services. And why does that happen? Well, it's because of the quality of life that we're trying to enjoy here. So that's another reason why I don't feel that a lot of the things that some speakers in these realms talk about in terms of the absolution, which could be the martial law or all this dissent, because ultimately none of us really care what these fucks say or think. And you know what? Because we already know that the money isn't worth anything. They told us in high school. It's called fiat. We understood then that this paper money isn't worth crap. Okay? So it's not new. The reason why everything keeps going, and you even hear all these different political advisors talking about how they had no idea how this economic inertia took us through these planned drops, these planned crashes, and we just walked through them like nothing. Why? Because of all that stuff that they're trying to program us with, to not care, to be desensitized. Well, it backfired because meanwhile all this stuff is going around us, but we're fine because we got different things. We got, like, for instance, we have each other in the chat room and online. We can talk to each other. We share ideas. There's all these different kind of activities. Why? Do we care now that it's been almost 100 years of this system, and they think now everyone's going to care? So, and it's interesting because I did want to talk a little bit about gold and silver while we're here too, because there's, I want to start with this fact. Okay, fact is that the United States is the biggest purchaser of gold. Okay. Also the IMF and Germany, and it kind of goes down from all these different interests. So now, if we think about this, okay, and we think about when the idea of buying gold and silver comes up, okay, have we noticed that it comes up during these economic turns, one way or another? Okay, now knowing that we know who holds the biggest cache of gold, okay, who do you think is profiting off of all the people buying gold? Probably the people who sell a lot of it, and those are probably the people who have a whole crap load of it. And guess who does? All the people that we're talking about are in control of things, and we don't like it. Goldman Sachs, the IMF, the Fed, they're the ones that sell the gold to the other buyers who then sell it to you at inflated costs anyways, and they're already making a profit. And guess who's happy to buy that bar of gold at a lower price when the economy gets better? That's right, the same people. And they already just made a whole killing off of you. So this is the gold bar silver thing is a scam. It is a scam, people. They are screwing you, okay? If you have an inordinate amount of wealth, over, I believe it's 250,000 American dollars or 350,000 American dollars, the Fed doesn't insure over that if you were to put it in. So if you had more that the Fed will insure in terms of monetary paper, nothing, right? Okay, you have then buy gold because it's going to stay stable, and you can't, and then you can put it in a safe deposit box. That's a good investment for large sums of money. But if you don't have that kind of large sum of money, you're not going to be able to do crap with a bar of gold. I'm sorry. Even if the apocalypse comes, okay, when you want water and you want ammunition and you only have one bar of gold, what's the person going to say to you? Yeah, what am I going to do with that gold? That's what they're going to do. They're going to laugh at you, okay? They're going to fucking laugh at you. So if you really, really want to to use gold in a true barter and trading kind of sense, use 10K, 14K chains, pendants, rings, stuff like that. That people will trade you for. And you have some kind of leverage in terms of a realistic bartering. Hell, you can probably even barter someone with a ring right now for an Xbox or something like that, as opposed to a bar of gold. Because then you have to have something worth that bar of gold. Like I said, I'm not necessarily saying that that essentially that it's not good to have. I mean, it's not a horrible investment to buy a bar of gold. It really isn't, because it does stay stable. The price stays stable. Same thing with silver. But the thing is, giving in to the fervor of what's going on right now, and not going about it in a smart way through a good channel, getting someplace is going to give you the fair per gram price, then yeah, you're probably going to get screwed. Especially these little places that pop up in these shopping malls. We buy gold. They're screwing you. Okay, if you have a community, if you're in a community that has a lot, it's industrious, that has things like blacksmiths and local traders and all these other things, and yeah, you're probably going to find someone who can actually use the gold, melt the gold, do stuff like that. But for those of us, especially in the inner cities, that doesn't happen. Or if it does, we're finding a big company that does that. You know, going to a large jeweler who might be able to move some of this stuff. So the point being is that gold is just like any other commodity, because in terms of investment for any kind of potential, uprising or downfall, shall I say, due to catastrophe, think practically. So like Aaron's website that just started here with his blog is going to have all the practicality there. And that's stuff that we should just have anyways. It should be there anyways. And then those of us who have, a home, for instance, unless the whole area gets wiped out, you're going to be better off being in a fortified area, especially if you have a very good relationship with your neighbors. It's like it's not going to be good for you to be traveling about in the middle of the country. Guess what? That's easy pickings for someone in a helicopter. So if you're trying to run from someone, middle of whatever, good luck. And if you have the good training, then yeah, you'll probably be okay. But you know what? Most people don't. So likewise, like I've talked about this too, in terms of just remaining in power, retaining power, it doesn't make any sense to try to cause some upheaval. It just doesn't make any sense. It's bad for business, It's just bad for business. So if anything, it just doesn't make sense. Okay, because likewise too, in terms of controlling the populace, that's going to take too much time and resources for what? Right now, all those the fat cats, Illuminatis, whatever powers that be, what do you want to call them right now? They're having fun snorting coke off of $10,000 a night hookers. At least some of them, I'm sure they are. While they're on their way to the orgy or whatever the hell ritual they're doing, they're not going to want to mess that up by doing something really stupid. That's one of the reasons why they don't want to say the stuff that's going on right now. Because it's like, yeah, there's some stuff they go to jail for, and meanwhile, they're enjoying themselves with all of their wealth and all this other stuff. So now what happens? Okay, let's implement martial law. Guess what? Everyone knows who they are. You know how our buddy Chucky Charles on Project Avalon was talking about. He was like saying they want to make an actionable offense for naming Monsanto or Johnson & Johnson or Pfizer or all these big companies. Sorry guys, it won't work. But they're saying this because they know that there's people. We know that there's people within that. Not all of them. Not everyone in these corporations, and even in the military-industrial complex and the military. Obviously, not all of these people want to kill off billions of millions of us. They just don't, because a lot of them don't. Actually, a lot of those people in there are probably part of that group that really small, that 1% of this earth wouldn't mind killing too. So, if anything, we have to remind people of that. Remind those in the system that they really don't care about you. And in the military, I'm sure a lot of you military veterans out there will attest to this too, is it's probably pretty easy to make that claim in the military, considering all the crap they shoot their guys all over the world up with, just to see if it works. And so it's like, if anyone really thinks that they're out for their good, it's like, well, they're naive. And this is easy to demonstrate. And so that's one of the things that we can use to reach people, to really start, informing and waking people up to make more informed choices, because that's what we need. So, if we do play too much into overreaction, because there's things that practically that we can do in the event of anything, because we do live in a universe that isn't just dictated by our own thoughts. So anything can happen to us. So it's always good to be prepared. So that's and I've talked this with other people too, like concerning stuff like survival and survivalism. Okay, not everyone joins the Boy or Girl Scouts. Not everyone goes out and does camping. And so this information is new to some people. They don't understand, never knew how to do it. And it's good to know for a lot of different reasons. Maybe something goes out at your house, or maybe say you're out somewhere and you get stranded. You'll know what to do. It's just good information to know. And if you don't have to use it, well, great. And if you do, maybe it'll be under your own choice while going camping or doing some kind of hiking trip. It opens up more avenue of possibility and experience for you, and that's all what we're here for, experience. We can learn from it. So, so it's good to do these things. Just like how I said, it's not necessarily bad to buy gold, but just be realistic about, or gold silver, but just be realistic about what you're going to do with it. Because I think it is great. It is a good idea for savings. If you know you want to have X amount for savings that you don't want to be able to touch, buy commodity like gold or silver, because it will just sit there until you're able to move it in the proper channels. So, but it's the proper context, and that's the important thing, because that's the difference between living in love or fear, as you hear everyone talk about. The context. If I'm learning survival as in the context of self-improvement and self-awareness, so that I can open up myself all these different possibilities, and in the event I'll be prepared, then you're doing it out of growth, which is love. Okay, I'm not getting fluffy, happy unicorns with the love thing. I like it. Everyone likes to pet a nice unicorn from time to time. But right now, I'm talking in practical terms, growth, nurture mode. In terms of scientific stuff, that is love or nurture mode, which is the opposite of fight or flight, which is exactly what we're in when you do stuff for survival out of fear, because you're like, they're going to get us. I know for a fact they're coming. Well, do you? Because you know what, honestly, people, I've been hearing this same crap for decades now. I'm not even that old. I'm 32 years old. I'm going to be 32 years old, and I remember hearing this crap for decades now. And you know what's funny? I remember hearing this stuff about gold and silver back in the 80s, last time there was a downturn in the economy, and guess who was saying all the same crap too? Ron Paul. Exact same stuff he's saying right now. Exact same. So you can grab it. He's younger. He has a little more color in his hair. He's a little thinner, but he's saying the exact same thing. And you can grab that audio, superimpose on top of a new video, and you'll think it just came out yesterday. But he's talking about the same stuff. So this is my point being, just like how we were talking with Alfred earlier and before he got on about the nuclear situation with extraterrestrials. Well, it's already been demonstrated they shut them down. So those are like, oh, there's going to be a nuclear war for sure. It's like, well, there's a factor here. Obviously, we have to take in consideration whether you believe in love and light and extraterrestrials or not. It doesn't fucking matter. You have to take in consideration, because now there has been documented evidence, accounts, that this is a factor, that they will shut our stuff down. So you can't just for sure know there's going to be a nuclear exchange, because we don't even know what factored in to them doing that. So, like I said, once again, difference there. If we look at it in fear, then we're looking at that saying, well, that's a potential threat, them shutting down our nuclear facilities and blah, blah, blah. We need to invest and kind of look into new technology so we can defend ourselves, blah, blah, blah. See, fear. Okay, but we see that and we look at that and say, well, obviously this is a message saying that what we thought was our epitome isn't, and that our philosophy really needs to be reevaluated in order to not only keep ourselves safe, but then to really kind of move beyond these weapons in a way that isn't going to be detrimental to us. There you go, different way. Because we really do need defense. You know what I mean? It's not just about, like I said, light and love. Because some things don't care as much as you do. That's part of living in a realm of polarity. And even in a unified conscious awareness, that unified consciousness is still an observation of a polarized singularity. There's still a top and bottom. You know what I mean? Even from singularity, you have a ball. There's a top of the ball and the bottom of the ball. Since you have the perspective of the unified perspective of seeing the whole thing, there's still polarity within that. So it can never be all light and all love or all dark and all hate. It just doesn't work. Okay. So we have to keep this in mind. Okay. So there is going to be a lot of stuff to deal with. So we do need defenses still. I think the problem that comes in now is the fact that all of our effort and all of our mental capacity is put towards military and killing. And it's really more now it's about killing because, in this past decade, so people seriously out there, you can't say Bush was no better or worse than any other president. You can't say that because this was the first time the United States ever did a preemptive war. Okay, this is the first time we actually went and attacked, like straight up and attacked and invaded. And that was under Bush's regime, not under anyone else's. And so that's the thing, though. At that point, 2000, 2001, it actually turned even as much the facade of defense was there. They just got rid of that facade. It's like, no, we're going to go ahead and show our true colors and be aggressors. And because as a lot of us know here, through history, through knowing the setup of different things like the Gulf of Tonkin, 9/11, Pearl Harbor, all these things, we know that was never their intention anyways, was necessarily defense. It becomes apparent that at one point it was pretty much just profit and control and establishing it. And just kind of like how Alfred was saying, well, now, okay, fine, you established your control. You established you got it. Now what? And that's what we're seeing. So that's why I think it's interesting right now when you hear all the fear concerning, like, oh, they're going to get us. Like Alex Jones, oh, they're going to get us now. Oh, martial law. Don't you understand, people? This is the 11th hour. Yeah, screw you, Alex. It's been the 11th hour for I don't know how long now, dude. And you know what? Like I said, my short 32 years of life here, soon to be 32, I'm sorry. I've lived through I don't know how many doomsdays. Okay, and I'm sure we have a crowd here that is well older than me, and I'm sure how many doomsdays have you guys lived through? There's a reason, okay? It's because not enough people want it. And that's really what it comes down to. It really does. So, is the power to destroy the world there? Yes, it has been. It has been for a long time. And so that's why I keep asking, why now? Why now, when everyone's probably most fed up with the system, most ready for change, most ready to do something different? And why now? And what makes anyone think that an assault on, in a sense, on a populace that is so unhappy would work right now? What makes people think they would be complacent now? We're already seeing all the different unrest in the world, all over. And they're probably more afraid of that happening here. Okay, it's true. But yeah, they won't hesitate to put you down like a dog. If things get out of hand. This has already been demonstrated in our history too. But the point being is they're so afraid they have to do that. And then what happens next? Then a lot of reparations come, a lot of lawsuits come, all this other stuff because there's too many of us. There's too many of us. We're too informed. We're not dumb, even though people like to think, or we kind of call each other dumb. We're really not. We don't necessarily know how to. Not everyone knows how to necessarily make a tent in the wilderness, but in terms of technological understanding, in terms of just practical living, I'd say Americans are pretty well versed on that. So they don't want that. They really don't. They don't want to wake people up in that sense. Now, see, and you look at some of these people in power. I'm sure some of them would love for this technology to come out because, as the man I mentioned earlier, Stan Deyo, he actually points this out too about all the different patents. Who's known Ralph Ring also pointed out the different patents with the United States Patent Office concerning all these technologies like the hyperdimensional energy, different fusion possibilities, and anti-gravitic propulsion as well. All of it's there. So once the truth embargo ends, that's why those people put it there, is that because once this ends, they're going to be in a much better position financially. Excuse me. And so, there's more people want. Obviously, the ones who don't are the ones who have the potential of going to jail. And as we know, a lot of the people who tend to be more zealous about acquiring their status and their wealth, they tend to be people who, I don't know, aren't necessarily that cuddly, shall we say. And so, so it's not really a surprise when you hear that these are the ones that are really digging their heels in and not wanting to let this go. I mean, like how Alfred was talking about with the booties grays, and I was watching the chat room in there, and yes, there are different grays. There's different races of grays, and but that's one of the things that Alfred's saying. He's right though, because you have this extraterrestrial race who can just run circles around us in a lot of ways, and they're saying our race is going to die, and we need to do this, and we only care so much about what you think about it, honestly, because that's really probably what they did, because they're like, yeah, we can just grab you and don't even know anyway, so we're actually being nice by telling you. See, that's a lot of people don't think about. That actually is them kind of being nice by even saying anything, because if you're just some alien race is just zipping around space, and there's still majority of people here going like, are they real? Oh, I don't know. It's like, yeah, you can just take people, not say a damn thing, and yeah, that's kind of how it goes. But see, that's what I'm saying. So that's one reason it kind of works into this whole amnesty idea as well, because what are they going to do? I mean, what's if you are in power? If you're one of the people out there in the audience in the archives, if you're actually one of the people out there making the choice, it's like, how easy would it be for you to be like, okay, I'm going to say no to these guys, and knowing that they could probably just do it anyways, or I can say yes and at least get some nifty new toys. I mean, start putting it in practical context here, because it's not an easy call. Because really, realistically, it's true. They didn't have to say anything. Even whether they're talking about the same grays that Dan Burrish was talking about, it doesn't sound like all those experiences were very good at all for most of these people. So, but still, you have to think that is what happened. That they really didn't have to say a damn thing to anyone. They could have just kept doing it, And then that's just that end. And then now let's start putting in the context of those, our leaders. The people that we have there making these kind of calls. What are they going to do? So this is why we have to make sure to channel that anger into appropriate place. I think everyone, honestly, is in the right to be a little upset, to be upset right now. In fact, you should be upset at what's going on. Because we've been lied to. We're being exploited, extorted, everything. So yeah, I think we should be a little upset about this, and we should be standing up for it. But at the same time, we should be very, I don't know, how should I say, discerning about where the justice falls. Okay? Because there is a lot of people, both in the Illuminati religion, as well as just inside some of these large corporate entities that really can't get out. It's just because of what they were born into, or just because of the circumstance, they just can't. So what are we going to do with them? Because as soon as some of this stuff really pops off, they're the people who are going to be informing us a lot about what happened on the inside, what it was like, what they had to endure. Because that's another thing that we have to remember too, is that you look at all these royals and these people, they're dealing with these subjects, the powers that be. Okay, all of them are heavily traumatized themselves. Okay, so we have to remember that as well. In a lot of ways, the vast majority of us who live, relatively middle class lives, we had a lot better than they did in a lot of ways, because they weren't getting the select out of the MK programs, in terms of mind control, to condition these children or whoever so they can grow up to be, these unfeeling bastards sometimes. It has to be taken out of humans. Obviously, that's one thing I think we can see that the vast majority of humans tend to not want to, kill other people, take other people's things, lie in an enormously amount just to further their own self or whatever. Most people tend to just kind of want to do their own thing, not take someone else's stuff, not kill someone else for it, and just not be messed with. And so if we look at those things, we'll find that around the world, more of us have more in common than what we realize. And if we look at it from that point of view, then a lot of these wars especially will go away. You know what I mean? Especially in terms of what's going on in the Middle East and Afghanistan. I think a lot of us forget that there's freaking wars going on right now that need to stop. They need to stop. Okay? We need to get, if anything, we shouldn't be bitching at Obama so much necessarily even about the financial system right now. We should tell them get our people home, because that's what broke us in the first place. And that's a fact. You can look that up, and that's part of the whole strategy of getting us in Afghanistan in the first place, because everyone except Genghis Khan has lost in Afghanistan. Everyone. It drains them. That's actually probably what brought down the Soviet Union too, because they were in Afghanistan trying to fight our Al-Qaeda, our database of fighters, over there. And then we go in there too? Hello. Doesn't anyone kind of, we got to think about that. No one thought about that. Everyone's just like, 9/11, got to get Osama, let's go shoot him. But, no, didn't even think about that. And then nor does anyone listen to the fact that, one of the head spec ops guys who deals with this kind of stuff ran into a bunch of snafus while trying to accomplish that mission. Dalton Fury is his name. It's a pen name. If anyone wants to look up his book, I forgot the name of the book right now, but his pen name is Dalton Fury. Let me see if I can find it here on, actually I think I can find it real fast. And there was a 60-minute interview with him about this subject, where he talks about being just totally snowballed, and even by our own CIA people while they're trying to go in the mountain ranges in Afghanistan. They're just leading him on a wild goose chase. So, as I said, this plays into that strategy. So this plays into that whole let's squeeze everyone. And it's not necessarily like a lot of the people obviously, or a good chunk of them are Americans obviously, but it's an international coalition. I think we hear that enough from different whistleblowers, different videos and such to let us know that. But yeah, it's an international coalition that's really trying to just squeeze everyone right now. Because when you hear that debt, right, especially in the United States or actually anywhere right now, that debt, okay, the debt. We owe this national debt. Who do we owe it to? Who exactly? Ask that question. You should ask that question, because you'll find at the end of that rope tends to be a central bank cartel sitting there. Part of the IMF sitting there that everyone's paying interest to. Yes, there's a bunch of government projects, commercial things that contractors that have to be paid, but ultimately you're going to find that debt points to the banks. So you have to ask yourself, well then if they're the ones that have the debt, how do they collect? Well, they're doing it now. So you can see that, actually the gold thing works into that, because people are, you see more stuff about people buying gold. Like I said, you're seeing these little places shop, at least around my area, we're seeing these places pop up, little shops. We buy gold, so that's one thing. Then the real estate. If you look at real estate situation right now, there's kangaroo courts being set up all over the country, without people knowing, that are made to literally just foreclose as fast as possible. There's an excellent article written about this in Rolling Stone by an writer named Matt Taibbi. And some of our audience here will probably recognize this man actually from the Wall Street episode of Jesse Ventura's Conspiracy Theory. and he does some excellent articles. I'd have to say that Matt Taibbi has to be one of the few voices of that we would say have in major media, because he does talk about all the conspiracy stuff, and it's not like, he doesn't necessarily come at it like how we do in terms of some of the FOIA requests or some of the things in relation to it, but he does enough sleuthing in the public sectors to where it's like you don't have to even get super detailed into things, and you're like, damn, these guys are dicks. So, in fact, one of the articles he just put out about the energy tycoon Don Blankenship, he's a coal tycoon from back east, the Appalachian Mountains. Scathing report on this guy, and shortly after, he retired. And this is the same guy whose mind was responsible for all the miners' deaths that happened here in America, and that explosion due to cutting corners, trying to save a buck, which always seems to be the excuse. Even in the BP incident that Alfred was talking about earlier, that's always the excuse. Okay, whether or not that's true, it almost doesn't even matter. But in a sense, it lets you know that, okay, you always have that correlation. Okay, let's just say that is true. Let's just say that cutting corners was the reason why the mine blew up, is the reason why the platform blew up, all this other stuff. Okay, well, let's just take that and say, you know what, corporations, you guys can't do that shit anymore. You can't do it. You can't. And it can't come from the government, obviously, because they just pay them. They just pay them to overlook it. You just, oh yeah, we'll go and let you mine, we'll let you drill where no one has. You know what I mean? Because we give you enough money. No, it has to come from uproar from us. And where does that come? How we do that? Well, we voice it on the internet. We voice it to our representatives as much as we can. Because as we know, right, as we keep hearing, they're listening to all of our stuff we say on the internet anyways, right? So let's keep talking about it. Don't shy away from what you believe. Talk about it more on the internet because they already know. And that's one thing for those who are regular listeners here on U.T.E, when you talk to Stuart Swerdlow, when he talked about this as well, about saying it doesn't even matter. Even if someone really wants it on the inside, wants information, all you have to do is think it, and now it's there. So, and now they got it. If they really want it, now they got it. So just think it, it's over. So take your paranoia and just nurture it into constructive energy that will allow you to prepare or to do whatever you feel is necessary, that you feel that you won't get able to do because they're going to get you. You know what I mean? Just take all the energy, all that, and put it into what you want to be. Because either way, if they do come to get you, that means you're prepared anyways, right? So, but that's the thing. Talk about it. Make more dialogue. The more open we share some of these things, the better. That's why, social networks like Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, this is great. Talk about it there. That's why I don't buy it when people say oh, it's bad, you shouldn't be on there. No, because this is kind of forcing them to see it. This is forcing them to see themselves. So it's why would we just say, no, I don't want to participate? Get a little holier than thou attitude, just like a one-man boycott of McDonald's. I ain't going to do anything. It's not going to do anything. What's going to do something is posting the articles about the crappy meat McDonald's uses, waking people up to what's going on there, not being a zealot, not running out there alone by yourself in your armor and I'm going to take you guys. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work because no one's going to listen. So we have to share dialogue. We have to share information. And then we'll see. We'll see how little effort this is really going to take to change everything. Because it's not going to take the guns. It's not. Because no one wants that. No one wants that. So the more information we bring, the better the choices. The more gradual the change is going to be, but you know what? It doesn't mean it's going to be any less profound, because as we've seen, it does just take one law to really set things off. I think we have to, and it's not about having faith in the political system. It has nothing to do with that. It's actually kind of the opposite. Okay, to have faith in the political system is really to sit back and let the politicians do what they want. And that's what a lot of people have been, guilty of before, naively been guilty of before. So we can't do that. So it means more of having less faith in our political figures and being more vocal ourselves. And any opportunity we get, even if it is just calling in to a Blog Talk Radio station or in the chat room or on Facebook. Or if you can't, or if you want to email your congressman or woman, go ahead, your representative in Parliament, rock on. Okay? Just know that depending on what you say, it's going to be received different ways. So if you want to actually have a dialogue, you're going to have to talk to them so they can understand you, and all they understand is votes. So if you can help them in some way get votes, then they'll talk to you. But if you just want to let your voice be known, do it. Say whatever you got to say. Because obviously, as Alfred was saying, part of the strategy for this disinformation was to ridicule. So we all have to be used to that. Just be used to it. Be used to being the crazy person. You have more fun anyways. And you know what? No one messes with the crazy one, do they? They always mess with the goofy one or the nerdy one. But even in school, think back to your school, everyone. For those of you, it's been a while. Remember, everyone left the crazy person alone, didn't they? So it's almost better to be the crazy person, So use that to your advantage. So, but it doesn't necessarily mean you are crazy. It just, these people, like a lot of the people out there, they are too busy surviving themselves the way they know how, which is going to work, doing all these things that we always do, and that's what they're preoccupied. It's not necessarily they're stupid, they can be naive, you know what I mean? But the whole thing is like we're all just trying to survive here. But if we show them how this applies to that day, then things will change, then they'll know. And even just that knowing, as we see in meditation experiments they've called the Maharishi effect, where focusing consciousness does make changes. So it does help ourselves and to better ourselves. So doing this is really how we're going to change this world, because all the actions that are going to be required, all the getting off your ass and doing stuff, will make more sense, or you'll know where to get off your ass and go if you kind of look within first. It's all about it's steps. We have to be in unison with ourselves and each other, in both mentally, physically, spiritually, to really move forward. And I really do see a change. We really do see more and more people waking up to this fact, because it's the truth. There's nowhere to hide. And so the more we bring stuff like out of the forbidden vault, or just different information that we have that's verifiable, the sooner this happens. So if there's any activism out there that we can do to really make this disclosure happen quicker, be more vocal about it. And don't just say the aliens are here, get over it. Don't do that. Say, you can put the aliens are here, get over it, when you put the Freedom of Information Act talking about the majestic documents where they talk about dealing with them. Then say stuff like that. Have the data with you. And then talk crap, because then you're not really talking crap. You're just like, well, now it's your turn to prove, because I think all of us here have done a lot to really kind of, shall we say, prove our point and know that we're not crazy really, and that we really are here for the greater good, not for ourselves. So we are just about out of time here today, and I wanted to thank everyone for hanging out and sticking with the show after Alfred had to move on. And it was an awesome time with Alfred. There's a lot of information, like I said in there earlier, so feel free to check out the archives again and catch up on some of Alfred's talking today. And Alfred has quite a backlog of a lot of great video interviews of all kinds, so I highly recommend him. And Stephen Bassett and everyone at the Exopolitics.org site. Those guys do a tremendous job at trying to make sense of all the wackiness that is outer space. So, but thanks again, everyone. And we'll be back Thursday with our guest. I'm totally forgetting right now. I'm sorry. It's David Corso, of course. No, David Corso will be here on Thursday. So rock on, everyone. Stay safe. And, talk to you later. Sorry.